Okay, let's dive right in. Have you ever really thought about what's going on inside your body when you get sick? We say things like, oh, I caught a cold, or I've got the flu. But what if I told you we can actually map the progress of an illness, just like a military campaign, like we're tracking an invader trying to take over a fortress, step by step? That's the big question, isn't it? Today, we're going to explore this really fascinating framework that does just that. It visualizes disease as a progressive invasion, moving through different stages, from the body's outermost defenses all the way to the very core of our being. It's a pretty powerful way to understand what it really means to get sick.
So our story starts way back in the Qing dynasty with this brilliant physician, Yi Tianqi. He was up against a serious problem. He was treating these things called warm diseases, really complex, feverish illnesses that just didn't line up with the classical medical books of his day. The old maps didn't work, so he realized he needed a whole new system, a new way to navigate and treat these really challenging conditions.
And this was his solution, the 4 levels pattern. It's a system that imagines our body has these 4 distinct layers of defense. It describes how a pathogen, an invader, penetrates the body, moving from the most superficial layer to the deepest one. And in the original texts, this whole model is known as Wei, Qi, Ying, Shu, where each of those words represents one of the defensive layers we're about to break down.
So, here it is, the path of invasion. It starts at the Wèi level, which is the most superficial. If the invader gets past that, it moves to the Qi level. Then, deeper still, to the Ying level, and finally it hits the Shu level, the deepest of all. And with each step, the illness moves deeper into our territory, and as you can probably guess, the fight gets a whole lot more serious.
Now, to really get this model, we have to be super clear about the word qi, because it's not just one thing here. First, you've got Wei Qi. Think of this as an invisible shield that circulates outside our skin. It's our very first line of defense. Then you have the qi of the second level, which flows beneath the skin. It's kind of like the difference between the guards patrolling the outer walls and the army waiting inside the city. And as we go deeper into the body's core, we find Ying and Xue. Now, both of these are inside the blood vessels, but they're not the same. Ying is the energetic, functional part of the blood. It's more yin, and its job is to nurse the body and keep everything in harmony. Xue, on the other hand, is the actual physical material stuff, the blood itself. It's our physical essence, which is more yin. So to make all of this really click, let's use an analogy. Just imagine your body is a fortress under siege. The Wei level, that's the high, strong castle walls. The Qi level, that's the army of soldiers inside ready to fight. The Ying level, that's the government, the administrators who keep the fortress running smoothly. And the Shu level, well, that's the common people. The citizens the entire fortress was built to protect in the first place. All right, let's watch this invasion play out, starting with level 1. This is the very first clash at the Wei level, where the pathogen makes first contact with the body's outermost defenses. These are the castle walls. This is our Wei Qi, that protective energy field that's always on patrol. Its entire job is to block those first invaders, often described as wind and heat, before they can even get a foothold. So the very first battle happens right here, on the surface of the body. The signs of this first battle at the Wei level, they're probably going to sound pretty familiar to you. You get a little bit of a fever, but at the same time, you feel chilled, and you really want to bundle up, right? You might be a little thirsty, maybe a little sweaty, but your mind is totally clear. These symptoms tell us that the fight is all happening on the exterior. Your body is definitely reacting, but the invader haven't broken through the main gates just yet. But what happens when those outer walls are finally breached? Well, the fight moves inside the castle. Things escalate. The pathogen is now past the Wei level and has made it to the Qi level. And once that enemy gets past the walls, they meet the soldiers. This is the body's inner army, the Qi, and it's mobilizing for a direct fight. This isn't a little border skirmish anymore. Oh no. This has just escalated into a full-blown war deep inside the territory. At this stage, the battle is absolutely fierce. Those slight chills from before, they're gone. Now they're replaced by a high fever and this feeling of intense internal heat. You're not trying to avoid the cold anymore, you're trying to escape the heat.
You feel this powerful thirst, you're craving ice-cold drinks, and you might be sweating like crazy. The body is literally throwing everything it has at this invader, trying to vent the extreme heat of the battle.
So, this is the crucial turning point. The struggle has officially moved from the surface to the interior. The pathogen is no longer outside. This intense internal heat starts to burn up the body's fluids, which explains that crazy thirst and all the sweating. The body's resources are being deployed in a massive way. But if the army fails, the invader pushes even deeper. It bypasses the soldiers entirely and starts to attack the fortress's command center. This is when the Ying level is breached, and the body's internal order and even the mind itself begins to crumble.
This is the Ying level. Remember the administrators in our fortress? They're in charge of law, order, discipline, and making sure resources are distributed properly. They maintain the internal harmony of the entire castle. So when this level gets damaged, the internal order of the body and mind just starts to collapse into chaos.
Now, the symptoms really take a dark turn. The fever gets characteristically worse at night. That intense thirst from before is replaced by a really dry mouth where you only want to take small sips of liquid. But here's the most important part. The mind is now affected. This is where you start to see delirium, confusion, or maybe even fainting. That's because the heat is now so deep, it's disturbing the heart and the pericardium, the organs that govern our consciousness.
This shows us that the illness is no longer just a physical battle over body temperature, it's actually disrupting the body's most fundamental regulations. The heat is so deep, it's agitating the spirit, which is what causes that restlessness and insomnia. You might even start to see faint rashes on the skin as the blood vessels themselves start to get affected. Consciousness is being compromised.
So, once the administration falls and chaos is reigning, the enemy reaches the final, deepest layer of the fortress. They've reached the Xue level, the blood itself. In our fortress analogy, this is the people, the citizens, the very reason the walls, the soldiers, and all the laws existed in the first place, to protect them.
This is level 4, the final stage, and it is by far the most severe and the most dangerous phase. The pathogen has now breached every single defense and has reached the body's most precious resource, its very essence, the blood.
At this point, the damage is profound. The intense heat is described as essentially boiling the blood, causing it to move recklessly, even bursting out of the vessels. This leads to terrifying symptoms: bleeding from the nose, in the stool or urine, even vomiting blood. The blood can also stagnate, which creates dark, dense rashes on the skin. And now, the core organs that manage our blood and our life essence, the liver and the kidneys, are directly threatened. The entire system is in crisis.
Losing blood is like losing the people of the castle. When the citizens themselves begin to die, it's a sign that the battle is all but lost. It means the enemy has taken over the deepest, most vital parts of the body. As you can see, the progression is a clear and incredibly dangerous escalation. It moves from what's basically a minor skirmish at the Wèi level to an all-out war at the Qi level, and finally to a complete systemic crisis at the Ying and Xue levels. The severity just climbs relentlessly as each layer is penetrated. You know, this whole framework does a lot more than just describe sickness. It really challenges us to see our own health not as some passive state, but as a layered strategic defense system. And that leaves us with a really critical question. If your body is a fortress, are your walls strong? Are your soldiers ready? Is your internal government maintaining order? How are you maintaining your own fortress?